So, I might have fucking got a little loud at the end and did something I shouldn't have, but I was trying to get his attention. I wasn't going to hurt him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you threatened him, right?
Well, yeah, I threatened to kill him. I had the NYPD blue at my house in suits with my cops. They lit up the street, and they just wanted to talk to me. They said the FBI's involved. This is bad, and I'm like, dude, if I wanted him dead, he'd be dead. And they're like, you can't say that. And I'm like, look, I'm just telling you. And I said it again, and they're like, you can't say that, But it wasn't. It was more like people turn on you in a second, and I'm not used to that. I have friends that'll kill for me, and I will for them. So I didn't know how to deal with people, in a different way of being, oh, okay, you know what I mean? Since you told me that, I won't.
When did you, I don't remember this happening. I did some research and I saw that you threatened to kill him, but I don't remember it happening. How did this happen? When did this happen, and what was the circumstances?
Well, okay, this is the whole thing, you know what I mean? Tim Sabian and Jared are the two main people, okay? Whether they want to deny it or not, I don't give a fucking shit, but don't lie to my fucking face when you see me. But the whole thing is that Tim had Jared call me up and said that I'm banned from the building because I quit because they were crying about the plugs, and I'm like, look, you gave me the plugs, so go yourself. I'll go do Opie and Anthony. And they said that, they were trying to get me to come back, and you're more than just a comedian. You're not like the other ones that go back and forth. You write, you do this, you got your own shows, And I was like, I'm sick of this shit, and I'm going to leave. And basically, they called, and Jared said that I attacked 4 security guards outside. This is when I'm heavily on Xanax, 6 milligrams a day, okay? Really fucking, now I'm just like, it takes your emotions low or high. If you get angry, you get more angry than you'll ever be. It's a horrible drug. If you're calm, it makes you really calm. And then he goes, call me, he goes, I'll call you the next day. He calls me the next day and he goes, I never attacked those security guards. I like them. We get along. I get along with everybody. And he's like, I never said that, Jared said. And my friend's sitting there that I do a podcast with. And I'm like, okay. I go, well, find out what's going on, and I'd like to talk to some. Next day, calls back, and he said, we can't security guards again. So I go on my show. It's taken down. I'm sure that they all took it, all cops, But I said, I'm going to kill him and his wife. I'm going to cut them up, and I'm playing it. And I've even talked to the detective that was not, that was his bodyguard, not Ronnie. It was a detective that would be. And we talked on the phone once because he hit me up. He goes, Bob, I know you're in that. And I said, I said, talk to me. And I talked to him and I said, I'm going to do exactly what I did with a knife, but I'm going to say it's an ice cream cake. And I did it. Like I was going to cut up an ice cream cake. And he goes, you're very good at this. I go, yes, I am. I go, yeah, I can have you believe what the fuck. That's what radio is. You know what I mean? That's what radio is. You think I couldn't say those words? You think, are you kidding me? As we did these words that I couldn't say, hedonism. I couldn't say that. I couldn't say any of these words. But it's what is good for the radio at that point. You know what I mean? And then you try to get away from it and move on to something else. That's what I always tried to do.
In thinking about back, the serious shows is really where you got a chance. I can't think of anybody that he turned the show over to you during these roasts. Like he literally said, all right, Bob, take it away. And you literally now are hosting the Howard Stern show. When you think of that, think back at that and think, my God, that was some damn confidence he had in me. And it turned out great. You had Baba Booey, Artie, Ralph, and the roasts.
Yeah, I mean, it was amazing, because what the plan was, this was going to be a separate show. So it wasn't like a lot of pressure. We're going to tape it. We're going to cut it. You know what I mean? I get a call a day or two before, and they go, we're doing this live on the show. So now everything changes. And I'm like, guys, you got to be fucking ready because I can't, I truthfully, I couldn't see. Like I can write stuff. I can do roasts. I'm much better just going off on people than trying to read stuff. I just don't know how to do that. And I couldn't really see what I was writing. And it was early in the morning. And I was like, I don't know the morning. And I was like, this is this is crazy, but it was going good. The first one was Ralph. I had an order I wanted to stick with. And then they said, we have to do Daniel Carver. And I was like, no. I go, that's going to be awful because you can't get this guy going. You're not going to get him going. This is going to be the worst roast. And they're like, you have to get all black comedians. And I'm like, this is you're giving him a Christmas present. This is he doesn't have to do anything. He has to say one or two words back to them, which are going to be pretty rude. He's going to own them. And they're like, no, it's going to get a lot of exposure in that. And they wouldn't back down on that. We did it. It was a fucking disaster. And then I had to change I think I went to Gary next. So it's part of everything. I was going to do Sal and Richard. I love swing, like both of them together, like a love chair, like, and do them both together. I was going to do it. And I was going to do, I wanted to do Scott because Scott has, like, you look at Scott, he got 7 things to talk. Everybody got like 7 to 10 things to fuck with him with. What do you got on Daniel Carver? You got one fucking thing. You know what I mean? That's all anyone knew about him. And nobody wanted to go. I knew from being a fan that no fans wanted to go outside of the realm of the people in the studio. And that would have been great. And it was supposed to end with Howard, it would have been Robin and Howard. And then we were going to do Fred before that. But the whole thing, I thought, when I even thought about doing Fred, I go, this is not going to be good either. He's another guy that, you just can't get him because he's a unique motherfucker. You know what I mean? It's not going to affect him in the way it should. So, it was kind of scary thinking, when we get to Fred, that's going to be a tough one. That's going to be the toughest roast besides Daniel Carver. But then we went from Gary, I believe, to Artie. And then it kind of, it kind of ran out of steam. You know what I mean? Because where do you go from there? Robin and, Howard. But then we never got to Howard.
Yeah, you guys did, though, during those roasts. Did he ever... I mean, you had a few at both. Robin got hit, I think, by Sal really hard. But just tell me, did Howard ever go, all right, let's just kind of try to keep me out of it, keep Robin out of it? Did that ever come up to you, or did anybody ever say that?
No, nobody ever said that to me, truthfully. I mean, I was told, how, like Sal was easy. It would just say, yeah, do that. Like, you know what I mean? He's like that fucking, it's like telling Gary the retard to lick a wall. So we would, yeah, you can go to Howard. You know what I mean? Nobody was going to go out to Howard because it was respecting more. You know what I mean? It was like, we knew, you knew. I mean, if we roasted him, it would have came down to it. But, you don't want to go after his kids. You don't want to go after his ex-wife. I mean, that would be, it's like a slap in your face. You know what I mean? So, like, I never really went after Howard that badly. Even when I roasted Howard at the beginning, I don't really think it was that evil, but it was funny stuff. But, it wasn't deep, But, like, you can convince some people to go deep on people. And, I wouldn't because I liked everybody, truthfully. I mean, I love Robin. I can honestly say that I loved everybody up there. They may not answer that way now because of the way everything ended, I mean, me and Gary had some arguments over, I talked to Gary. Gary was the one person that was the one you always dealt with. You know what I mean? So, if I had an agreement or if somebody else had a disagreement, didn't have the balls, they'd come to me. I would talk to Gary. So, yeah, I come off like a pain in the ass, but I'm trying to, help other people out. You know what I mean? So it looks like I come off, oh, he's a pain in the ass. He kind of tells me what to do. But then you have other people crying to me, and that's what you do. You think you have people you grew up with, but then you realize you don't.
Yeah. My other favorite thing that you did on the show, and it wasn't really for the show, and I was wondering, did Artie, was he playing a prank on you when he asked to read his audiobook? Because when they played it back and you had those issues reading his chapter, your nose with your head, hold on, your nose.
Dude, let me tell you something. I don't know. I really think Artie's just lazy, truthfully. But when it came down to it, like Howard probably said to him, which I think he did, how is he going to do this? Because he really can't I don't look at things. I can talk a great game, but to read a good game, no, that's not my thing. You know what I mean? And I think Howard said to him, he's not going to be able to do it. And I started getting the hype before. So what they got, they not only had a producer with me, they had a second grade teacher telling me how to basically say the words to make it sound normal. And I had no idea at that time. And it was work. And when I got a word, when I got something, I got really excited. And they were looking at me like I was retarded. But it's like, to me, I'm not, a school person. I'm more of a street person. And that's okay because it worked out. But the whole thing is that me and the wife heard that tape probably 6 months ago, the outtakes from that. And we laughed so hard. We laughed so hard at the outtakes from me reading Artie's book. And it was the funniest thing. And I'm like, then you look at it and you go, that show was amazing back then. And when you listen to the bits, oh my God, the crystal clear interview, oh my God, that you never heard from because the guy threatened to kill everybody, her boyfriend. You never heard that more than one time on the show. Never made a replay. You thought I was going to kill everyone. That meant it.
So I don't know how long I could have done that. I mean, we all know what happened to Artie Lange. I'm a guy that's had problems with those things too in life, not to Artie's extent. But when you hang around that late in that type of atmosphere with those type of people, bad things are going to happen. You're going to get hooked on stuff, and that's exactly what happened to Artie. But I mean, he gave Howard 10 awesome years. The show just blew up with Artie there.
Oh, it's my favorite time period. I love the Jackie era. I feel like there's two eras. Well, three eras, really. Jackie, Artie, and then whatever's happening now.
Artie was better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is your deal?
Artie's the best, though. Artie brought that show.
I was going to ask you about Artie.
Deal with Artie?
Yeah, just how you did it. I know you did this podcast a few years back, but I mean, do you talk to him? Have you heard from him?
God, it was a while ago. Now I have it. I was with him the night that Crashing premiered on HBO. What is that? 4 years ago, whenever it was. 5, I don't even know. But he was straight, he told me. But that night, he called me and said he wanted to get high. And I thought he was I said, come on. He said, no, man, I really need something. Can you find anything? And I hadn't been looking for that stuff for many years. And I said, I don't know who to call. I'll call somebody. And it took hours, but I found somebody. So Artie met me at this restaurant with this guy. He got his stuff. We both went to his room. We had a little fun. I'm not going to lie. I was involved as well. And then I swear to God, everything in his life changed the next day. Like every bad thing happened to him from that night on. Now, I don't know what he was doing before we hung out. I tend to think he was doing plenty. But he presented to me, no, man, I'm straight, but I just can't go to San Francisco with the HBO executives. It's too much on my head. I mean, junkies say stuff like that. And I was never around Artie on a daily basis to know any better. But I'll tell you, everything that happened, the getting caught, going to jail, it all started to happen from that night. And you think about a guy that's got a best-selling book on the shelves. He's got this show crashing on HBO. He's got a podcast that was making a ton of money, and he's on stages everywhere in the country. He's making millions. And then it all goes, and I don't know where he is now. No idea. He ain't getting high. He's not in jail, or else we'd all know. So he must have made an obvious, thank God, a really big change in his life to rectify things. But no one's saying where he is.
Yeah. No, that's what's crazy. No one's talking. He just did something with Nick DiPaolo, I guess, and it was very weird. It was quick.
I heard that.
It was quick.
I heard that, but they wouldn't say where you are. It was weird. Yeah.
But we were talking just how those eras, and I think I may have cut you off, but man, it was. I mean, I try to remember why it was so funny, and I think it was when Artie first started. He was so quick, and the fact that. And the more I've talked to a bunch of the guys during this kind of series, it's, he was one of the only guys that had an open mic. Howard didn't let Fred have an open mic, but he's like, Artie, mic's
right.
open.
Open mic. And that's one of the things I loved when I did the show. Howard always left my mic on as well. The way the Stern show is set up, you got Fred, you got Benji Bronk, and I was in the middle, or Artie would be in the middle, Fred and Benji write jokes constantly. And there's a little bin in front of where I sit, and you throw these jokes on big pieces of paper in the bin, and then Howard can read the jokes with a camera that's pointed down right onto his computer screen. So people don't know, but 80% of the jokes that Howard says are written by Benji or Fred. I didn't write them. I just said them because he left my mic open. Same thing goes for Artie. You cannot write as quick as Fred and Benji. It's impossible. They are so quick. So I just spoke. But yeah, Artie was an open mic guy. And I don't think there was a better time there. And the thing about Artie, the really sad thing is, I think part of the reason why he went over the edge, especially after losing the Stern job, Artie's dad died when he was young. He never got over that. And then Stern kind of abandons him, never talked to him again. So I think it's a question of Artie dealing with the two most important men in his life just leaving, and maybe by now he's had a conversation with Howard. I know Howard said things in the press that must have made him feel a little better because Howard didn't know how to treat it. He felt a little guilty. He had told me once, I felt guilty that maybe we were letting this guy get all effed up on air. It was jokes, it was fun, but in retrospect, I didn't know what I was doing, letting him do that without insisting on him getting help. So Howard's got a little guilt. And when you're a Jewish guy from Long Island, it's a lot of guilt. So maybe they've spoken since then. But I know that's got to hurt Artie. And that's definitely one of the reasons why he spiraled out of control, I think.
It was hard to watch, too, because there's a lot of bits where Fred was like, I don't know, he just seems out of it. And Howard's like, oh, he's just tired, And that went on. After a while, it got kind of annoying, but still funny, the fact that it became a story for them to.
Guy was passed out. Passed out in the chair. And then, Howard's not an addict, so he doesn't know the behavior. Fred's not an addict. Robin's not. There weren't any people in studio to understand those highs and lows of anger. That's an addict behavior. The lies about I couldn't come in, I went to the doctor, I had a cough, I had a urinary tract infection. Those are all lies that junkies tell because they want to get high. If you're late, it's because your dealer wasn't there on time. If anybody in that studio had a problem with drugs, they would have picked up on Artie early. But by the time they figured it out, it was too late.
Yeah, unfortunately, it was great radio for the audience. And
it was great.
You had I think it'd be awesome if I had a classic moment on the show. I will never forget your moment. Were you really, I'm sure you've been asked this a million times, but were you really ready to go out there to punch? Did you want to punch Stuttering John, or were you like, I'm saying that on the radio, but I'm just going to go confront him?
No, I wasn't going to punch him. I was never going to punch him with a closed fist. I always knew it would be a smack. And I still get this to this day. People say you japped him and you punched him. No, I didn't punch him. I'm a righty. I smacked him with my left hand around Gary's head, and Gary's teeth took most of the blow on my forearm.
He screams, too. He goes, now I'm remembering it.
He screams out.
And KC is standing there watching, and Ronnie, no one's doing it.
Well, the thing is, I said, I'm going to go out there and smack him. And once I got to the hallway, I was like, in the hallway, I thought, well, maybe I'll just talk to him. We'll hug it out or something. But then all the cameras were lit. And I said, oh, they want something. They want some TV. Okay, let's have some TV. So when I smacked him, all hell broke loose. Now, John and I would have fought. He's a big dude. He was coming at me. And KC grabbed me, and I fell out of my sandals. So if you see in the hallway, I'm falling out of my sandals. I don't know if I fell or almost fell, but if KC wasn't there, Gary would not have been able to hold John back. We would have had a fight in the hallway for real. Yeah.
That sucks.
No doubt.
That would have been great because you got let go for that.
It would have been great.
But I think the fact that was on video, and then you had to come in and talk about it, and then he used the word Jap, and everyone's asking, what's Jap mean? We've never even heard of that. Instead, John's like, he japped me, he japped me like a Jap would do.
It wasn't a jab. Listen, when you warn a guy on a radio show that big and tell him one more call, I'm going to come in there and smack you, that's not a jab. That's a complete fair warning. And as soon as he did it, he knew I was coming in, but he thought we'd just laugh it off. John and I are fine. for years I've done his podcast. I actually let him smack me back on air during his show a couple of years back. He didn't want to do it, but he finally did it, and he gave me a good shot. So we're even. We're even.
So how does that day end for you? Does Tom come and tell you? Does Howard? Who tells you? All right, how do you know you're done?
Well, Tom came in the studio and said, "I can't have you here. We can't have any violence." And this was way back in 2000 when workplace violence was not really talked about. Like, I don't know, it was kind of a new thing, I guess, for cavemen like me. But when I was with a girl, I went back to the hotel room, my shirt was ripped, and I said, we got to go. I got to go back home to my sisters on Long Island because I wasn't living in New York anymore. So we split, and then Howard called me as soon as I got to my sister's house. He was like, hey, man, I feel so bad. It was fucking great. That was awesome. I just, I can't do anything about it because you put your hands on him. I said, don't worry, bro. It's fine. I did what I did. It's all good. It was solved in a couple of days. I just knew I wasn't going back, and I'd spent a month there. And, I got paid. Back then they paid me $500 a week to show up. Was it $500 a week? It might have been more. It was good money to show up every day. It was a really fun gig. I never thought about it being a career. I just never thought that way. But when I read the papers the next day, every headline said Benza ruins radio career. And I go, oh, people thought that might have been my next move. I didn't think that way. Might have been probably would have been the greatest thing that ever happened to me. But if I had done it, what happens to Artie Lange? The show would not have been as good with me there over Artie. No way.
Yeah,
no way.
I hate to say it, but yes, that's true. But I will say it would be awesome to be banned from.
True, I know.
You were banned from the greatest radio show of all time, and I don't know how many people they banned. I think maybe you're the only guy, maybe High Pitch Eric, but.
Maybe you're right. I mean, I did about 100 appearances, but I was banned from the building. And then I called 2 more times a couple of years later. But it's not my show anymore. I don't follow it. I like his celebrity interviews, but I don't follow the day-to-day nonsense. I don't know all these guys and the dramas they have. It's not my thing. Look, when that show was on in New York City and you walked down the street and people knew you, they heard you on the radio, they saw you walking down the street, they would yell your name out. It was a wonderful feeling. I don't think that'll ever happen again. It won't happen again with radio. But when you did Howard Stern, everybody in this city, cabbies, truck drivers, the cops. I've been stopped by cops in L.A., and they've let me go because of Howard. Tell Howard I said hi. I mean, cops, firemen, construction guys, cabbies, they love Stern. Love him to this day.
It's a great show, and yeah, he's obviously older and he can't do what he did now what he was doing back then, but I'm curious, I don't even know if you're the right person to ask this, but I always wondered this, and I wrote this down today because I'm like, maybe AJ knows. Mike Walker would come on every Friday with that game, the silly game. It seemed like nonsense to me, and I had never understood. I assumed he was being paid, one, obviously, and then two, Howard just didn't want to be in the Inquirer. Is that... What, he's basically like, hey, Mike, just stay the fuck away from me if I'll have you on the show every week and promote you.
Well, Mike would call in. It was a weird thing. I was on a few of those over the years. He'd call in. I mean, he'd been in the studio before. But when I was there, he'd call in and give the 4 things that happened. 3 of them are not true. 1 is true. Pick out the true one. And I don't know why Howard liked it. I mean, I know Howard liked gossip because that's how he began to like me in my column. I don't know. It was back then, gossip, National Enquirer gossip was big because the OJ trial had happened, the Menendez brothers, Tanya Harding, Joey Buttafuoco. There was so many scandals that were going on that I wrote about. It was the tabloid wartime, so everything was really blown out of proportion. So when Mike showed up to give those tidbits, and the Inquirer was really big because they led the way during the OJ trial. They broke at least 50 stories during the OJ trial. People make fun of the Inquirer all the time, but they led the majority of newspapers in America with their own coverage. So got a knowledge out of that. And Howard liked it because people were reading the magazine. And not for nothing, we could all make fun of Mike Walker when he wasn't in the studio. We put the phone on mute and talk shit about him, and Howard liked that part of it too. And I think there was the one episode where Mike Walker farted while he was reading one of his gossip items, and the big thing was, is that a fart or not? And Mike had no idea we were talking about that. I mean, no idea. As he's telling his gossip item, we're screaming, laughing because we're convinced he farted during one of the reads. And then we brought it up, and he swore it wasn't a fart. Just stupid shit like that. But I would leave that place 9:45, 10 a.m. if you went late. My stomach would just hurt. You know, you'd pace yourself to get through the show. But once the news started with Robin and that music began, then it was like the best 20 minutes, 25 minutes of the day. It was so much fun because we all would rag on the items, rag on Robin. Everybody got pounded during that half hour. Yeah, I missed that more than anything about his show. The news was phenomenal.